Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, thank you for coming tonight. So we are going to continue on with the Sri Manah Siksa, the splendid instructions to the mind by Raghunath Das Goswami, with the commentary. Oh, thank you. With the commentary of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We did sell most of the books yesterday, but there are a few left. And we do have, we've run out of the chanting books, but we have sets of the Manah Siksa available for 20, or you can buy them online for 25. So you're welcome to get yourself a copy. So yesterday we went over verse 1. Does anybody remember who we're supposed to have unprecedented attachment for? Yes. Guru. Who else? Devotees. Process of surrender. Holy name. Holy place. And? Well, process of surrender to the lotus feet of the divine couple and the mantras. And that also excessive attachment means we're supposed to make an endeavor, right? Not just love, but also an endeavor. And we should always give up pride. Always give up what? Pride. Okay, you ready to do that? Yes. You sure? Yes. All right. Don't blame me if you're going to be giving up pride here. You've been all warned, yes? Okay, great. So you ready for text 2? Everybody ready for text 2? Yeah. All right. Our plan is to go until 9 tonight. Is that okay with everybody? Actually, sometimes people say yes because they just don't want to say no. Yes? Okay.
Then is also okay.
That is also okay. All right. All right. One time when I was in a seminar, the presenter said that one time he had been in a seminar, he had been a student in a seminar, and during a break, the teacher said, you can all get up, there's refreshments, whatever, donuts on the side if you want any, and nobody moved. And so the teacher went around to, it was a small group, like 20 people. Would you like some? No, no, no. Would you like some? No, no, no. Would you like? No, no, no. And finally they got to him, he was the last one. He said, I think I'll take some, and then everybody got up and went to get them. So, if you do need to leave early, we do have recorded seminars of Manah Siksa online. So you're welcome to, they're not going to be exactly the same way because the ones we have online are in 3 parts. Here we're doing in 5 parts, but you will be able to catch up whatever you've missed if you do need to leave early. All right? And as we said yesterday, we love children. Yes? Does everybody love children? If you would like the Hare Krishna movement to go on in the future, I hope you love children. There's never been a religious organization in history that survived long-term without children. So please welcome the children if they act like children. Okay? If the children are screaming, you need to remove them. But if they're just being normal children, they are welcome. Okay? But screaming or racing around the room, they need to be taken out. Otherwise, it's fine. Okay? So no need to apologize that your child is acting like a child. Maybe, in 30 years, that will be me in the audience as a child. Okay, so now we're going to go to our first level of giving up pride. And again, we have the benediction that if we sing these verses in a sweet voice, trying to understand their meaning, we will attain the jewel of service to the divine couple in Vraja. So I'd like us to please sing this together. It's to the tune of Jagannathastakam, but sing the 4th line in the same tune. So we'll sing it all together. Na dharmam shruti gana niruktam kila kuru vraje radha krishna prachura paricharyami hatanu shachi sunam nandishvara pati sutatve guruvaram Mukunda prastatve smara paramajashram nanumanaha. Together. Indeed, do not perform any pious acts prescribed in the Vedas and supporting literature or sinful acts forbidden in them. Staying here in Vraja, please perform profuse service to Sri Sri Radha Krishna. O mind, unceasingly remember the son of Sachi as the son of Nanda Maharaj, and Sri Guru as the dearest servant of Lord Mukunda. So we may ask, how is it we're not going to do either dharma or adharma? I mean, what's left? Everything is dharma or adharma. And Bhaktivinoda brings up this point in his commentary. By the way, this particular verse of Manah Siksa is one which Srila Prabhupada quoted quite often. So one way we can understand is by going to Bhagavad Gita 6.3. There Krishna explains that for the beginner, they will engage in ordinary work and dharma, but for the advanced person, they give them up. So we can understand this na dharma means for those who are more advanced. Another way to understand this is by looking at Bhagavad Gita 4.17. There Krishna explains that there's 3 different kinds of work. Not only 2. There's karma, vikarma, and akarma. Karma is the same as dharma, and vikarma is the same as adharma. So what is it here that Raghunath Das Goswami is asking us to give up? Because generally the devotees, at least externally, engage in acts that are the same as dharma, isn't it? Yes, generally. There's some exceptions. Sometimes devotees may even externally do things that would be adharmic. like the gopis running to see Krishna in the middle of the night. But that's a very unusual kind of situation. Usually the devotees do something that is dharmic. So what does Raghunath Das Goswami mean here? So he's looking at identity. Identity is the main thing that takes us beyond dharma and adharma to a third option, beyond karma and vikarma to akarma. So generally we motivate ourselves in this world with a dharmic identity. I am a very good person. I cook and clean because I'm a good mother. I earn the money because I'm a good husband. I chant my rounds because I am a good disciple. I pay my taxes because I am a good citizen and I am a very good person. And who is that about? Who's that about? Me. And it's not really very loving. You imagine if the husband comes home and his wife says, "Dear, I cooked dinner tonight because I am a very good wife." I thought it was because you love me. So this kind of identity, it's a false thing, isn't it? I'm not really anybody's son or daughter or husband or wife or mother or father. I'm not really a finance officer or an IT specialist or a doctor. I'm not really any of those things. Now what happens when I try to motivate myself by saying I'm a very good something? Something very interesting happens, and that is I start evaluating everything I'm doing by this criteria of whether or not I'm a good this or that. Now because those this or that are not me, I'm never going to be perfect at being a this or that. It's like if I said, I want to try to be a very good dolphin. It wouldn't work very well because that's not what I am. But I have the same exact problem if I say, I am a very good daughter, because it's not real. And so when I'm evaluating myself, I'm often going to fall short. Doesn't that happen? We fall short and then we're mentally beating ourselves up. Oh, why did I do this? Why did I say this? That wasn't a very good this. The other problem is that other people will also find that we fall short. Right? In order for me to be a very good wife, at least my husband has to agree that I'm a good wife, at minimum. But usually also my mother-in-law, and that starts, you understand why we're getting to have a problem here. Yes? My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my brothers and sisters-in-law, my mother, my father, my sisters and brothers, maybe my children, maybe the neighbors, and I don't think she's a very good wife. Right? And then when other people don't agree with this identity, I become frustrated and angry. Almost all of our interpersonal relationships, when we have problems with them, are due to the fact that I'm disappointed that other people don't agree with my false identity. Do you all understand this? No? So I make lasagna on Monday and my husband says, "Oh, fantastic, you're such a good wife." So I make it on Tuesday and he says, 2 days in a row? So what is he challenging? He's challenging my identity, my dharmic identity of I am a very good wife. And then I become angry. Don't you appreciate me? Isn't it? And if you think about it, our interpersonal problems are mostly, there's some other causes as well, but mostly they're due to having this false identity, which I'm never going to be perfect at. And when other people make it clear that they don't think I'm perfect at it, or when I see that I'm not perfect at it, I become disturbed. Now, some people motivate themselves by an adharmic identity, probably nobody in this room, but there are people like that. I am a rebel. I'm a nonconformist. I'm really bad. I don't follow the rules. I can do whatever I like. So that's an adharmic identity, right? We motivate ourselves like that. And if people ever tell us that we're following the rules, we become angry. Now, both of these, this very dharmic identity and this adharmic identity, both of them entangle us in the law of karma. They both lead to disappointment, and they both lead to karmic reactions. Can you see from over there? Okay. So what are we going to do instead? What is beyond this dharma and adharma? So I like to call this the secret agent principle. So why secret agent? Because generally, 95, 98% of the time, the devotee of Krishna looks like a dharmic person. But secretly, there's a different identity. So just like if you were a spy, let's say you were an American spy and you go to North Korea, right? You don't go to the immigration officer and say, "Hi, I'm an American spy." It wouldn't work very well. So you have to go in there and you have to say, "Well, I'm an English teacher," something like that, right? You have to have a cover. And then when you're in North Korea, you try to be a good English teacher. But you're not really trying to be a good English teacher. You're really trying to be a good spy for your country. Is that clear to everybody? Yes? Who are you really trying to please? You're really trying to please your own government. You're not really trying to please your English students exactly. So the way this works is something we all know how to do. Just like I could be talking to you, but really I'm trying to impress you. Have we all done this? We're dealing with one person, but we're trying to impress somebody else. And we may worship Krishna like this. We may be, I'm worshiping Krishna. Do you see? I'm worshiping Krishna. So sometimes we take care of Krishna to impress other humans. Right? I am chanting so nicely. Watching? So just reverse it. Instead, deal with other humans to impress Krishna. This is a very small change. It's like two parallel lines, a little small change. But it's a change that takes you to a completely different place. If the only thing you get out of these 5 Manah Siksa seminars is this one point, this is a life changer. Is Krishna always there? Yes, at least theoretically we can understand. He's always watching, he's always listening. Try to impress him. Try to impress him. Deal with your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your son, your daughter, your sister, your brother, your employer, your employees, your clients, whoever, your patients, to make Krishna smile. We will never be successful at pleasing another conditioned jiva. Good luck. Or a group of other conditioned jivas. It won't work. But you can always please Krishna. Why? Because Krishna is pleased by the intention to please him. He's actually pleased very, very easily. Other jivas are only pleased by certain results. But Krishna is pleased by an intention. Isn't that a fact? Right? Vijaya was able to please Krishna with banana peels. Because his intention was to please Krishna. Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam. One has to act in a way trying to please Krishna. Of course, that means you're trying to get a good result, but we know we're not in control of the results. So I want to make Krishna smile. I want to do everything as an offering to make Krishna smile. This changes our identity from I'm a very good this or that, or I'm a rebel, to I'm simply a servant of Krishna. Jivera Swarupaya Krishnara Nityadasa. And any actions performed in that mentality do not entangle us in the law of karma. They may look to other people. Other people may look at our life and say, oh, you're a very good father, you're a very good this, you're very good that. But our own mentality is different. So you remember in verse 1, attachment to the process of surrender to the lotus feet of the divine couple. And we mentioned there, and I remember I told you to make a mental note of it, that Bhaktivinoda picks up on this point, that one should be one-pointed to the lotus feet of the divine couple. So we may ask, well, how exactly does this work? Especially with Lord Chaitanya. Did any of you notice that Lord Chaitanya was absent from that list in the first verse? And maybe some of you thought that was a little peculiar, especially knowing Raghunath Das Goswami's relationship with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Raghunath Das Goswami had a very close relationship with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of course, through Swarup Damodar. And why isn't he mentioning Mahaprabhu in his first verse? Well, here he tells us that one should see the son of Mother Sachi as the same as the son of Nanda Maharaj. Right? I don't know why he picked Mahaprabhu's mother and Krishna's father, but so we illustrated it like this. So he's saying that we should see the son of Sachi, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the same as the son of Nanda Maharaj, Sri Krishna. In fact, one should see all of the incarnations in the same way. In this way, we're one-pointed to Krishna, yet we're worshiping Lord Chaitanya. We're seeing Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. It's very interesting, in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada says that one can fix one's mind on any incarnation of the Lord, and he lists some of them, Rang, Nrsimha, etc. Then in the purport, I believe it's 1865, Srila Prabhupada says, you should only fix your mind on the two-handed form of Krishna playing the flute, and do not divert your attention to any other form. So how do you do this? How do you follow the instruction in the 8th chapter purport to fix your mind on any form, like Nrsimhadev, and in the 18th chapter, to not divert your attention to Nrsimhadev? Now, I can't fix my mind on Nrsimhadev if I can't even divert my attention to Nrsimhadev. So the answer is that we see all the incarnations as Krishna. You know, we're worshiping Ramchandra's appearance day, Nrsimha's appearance day, Vamana's appearance day, yes? And in many of our temples, we have deities of Gaur-Nitai. We may even have deities of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman. But when we see these other incarnations, we say, oh, there's Krishna. There's my Krishna. Maybe today he's a little angry or something, but there's my Krishna. So as I mentioned, we commissioned 12 original oil paintings for this book. So for this painting, we thought, well, Raghunath Das Goswami is speaking in this verse about Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj. So we really wanted in our painting to show Nanda Maharaj and Krishna. Now you don't see too many paintings of Nanda and Krishna, right? You see mostly Yashoda and Krishna, so because he says Krishna, the son of Nanda. But also in this verse, he talks about Radha Krishna. So we wanted to have Srimati Radharani in the painting also. So we have this particular painting, and this is a story from the Brahma Vaivarta Purana. It's also mentioned by Prabodhananda Saraswati in the Gita Govinda. Those of you who have the books in volume 1 in the back, you have the whole description from the Shastras of the story of this particular painting. This pastime happens in Bandiravan, across the Yamuna, by a large banyan tree. So I'm not going to tell you the story now, but as I say, if you have the books, it is in the back of volume 1. So here we see Nanda Maharaj with baby Krishna and Srimati Radharani. Now also in this verse, Raghunath Das Goswami tells us about our relationship with Guru. So he's already mentioned in the first verse that we should have unprecedented attachment for Guru. But again, we have this one-pointedness, right? How are we going to be one-pointed to Krishna? And this is a very, very important point. We could discuss just this one point for a week or a month. What does it mean that we have full attachment to Guru, but we're one-pointed to Krishna? So here Raghunath Das Goswami says we should see Guru as Mukunda Presta, as the very dear friend of the Lord. In Bhaktivinoda's commentary on the first verse, he said we should see the Guru as our own dear friend. And here Raghunath Das Goswami is saying we should see the Guru as Krishna's friend. What is the sloka in the Guru Vastakam which says something very similar? Sakshad Haritvena Samasta Shastir Uktastata Bhavyakta Eva Savir Kintu Prabhurya Priya Eva Tasya. That we worship the Guru as good as God, not because the Guru is God. The only time Prabhupada kicked people out of the Hare Krishna movement was when they said he was God. You know, that's very common. Some teacher comes and his disciples say he's God and he accepts it. But Srila Prabhupada, when he was called God, he immediately said, you have to throw them out of the movement. So we worship the Guru like God because the Guru is the friend of God, because the Guru is very dear to God. So this is everyone who loves God should love everyone that God loves. Yes? We talked yesterday, everyone who loves God should love everyone who loves God, and this is everyone who loves God should love everyone who God loves. So my service to Krishna, why one-pointedness to Krishna, includes everyone that Krishna loves. And Srila Prabhupada gives the example, when you marry someone, you not only get a spouse, you get a whole family. Yes? Of course, sometimes that may not be very pleasant. But the concept is there. You understand? As soon as you have that relation established with one person, then immediately the relation is established with everyone that they love, everyone who is close to them. So as soon as we love Krishna, we also love whoever is dear to Krishna. And just like in this world, a person is more pleased when you please their child than when you please them directly, or when you please their dog. You know, if you see somebody walking their dog, if you say to the person, "Oh, you're a very good-looking person," they may be disturbed. But if you say you have a very good-looking dog, they'll be very happy. Try it sometimes. It's a fact, you know. Say, "Oh, that's a very nice dog." And they're, "Yes." So Krishna feels the same way. You know, whenever we do service for his devotees, especially for those devotees who are particularly helping us, who are serving as guru, when we serve them. All right, I want to just go back for a minute to Lord Chaitanya. Do I still have a traveling microphone? Okay. So, how many of you have something to write on and something to write with? Okay, goodly number. Oh, it's not on. All right, Krishna. Always make sure your microphone is. Okay. Oh, my apologies to any of you who hated mathematics. What I'd like you to do, if you could do this in groups with somebody who has something to write on and someone who has something to write with. So if you can kind of cluster around someone who has something to write on and something to write with. And if you remember how to do Venn diagrams, what you're going to put in here would be what's the same, and what here would be different. Like here you'd put golden, right? And here you put blue. Understand? And here you might put beautiful. So in the middle you want to put what's the same about each of them, and on the two other sides what's different. So if you could get in groups. What was that? You can't do that. Did that yesterday too. That happened yesterday too. Why does that happen? You're not sure. It just happens by itself? Huh? It happened yesterday also. You didn't notice it yesterday. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So one thing we can notice about this verse, about verse 2, remember we talked about going deeper into giving up pride. So in verse 1, we were attached to Guru, to the devotees, the holy place, the holy name, the Gayatri mantra, the process of surrender. But we might have had an identity of being a good person, right? Could you have attachment to all those and still have that wrong identity? Yes? So this giving up of this wrong identity is going to a deeper level of giving up pride. Is this clear to everybody? Everybody understand? You could be attached to Guru, you could be attached to the holy name, you could be attached to the process of surrender, you could be attached to the holy places, but you could still think, I'm a very good person. Is that possible? So step 2 is, okay, you're already attached. Good. Now give up the pride of I am a good or a bad person. So we've now taken the second step in giving up pride, which is giving up this false identity. Okay, we ready to take the next step? Okay, this is going to be a deeper level of giving up pride. Okay, if we can sing together. Yadi cheravasam vraja bhuvi saragam pratijanur yuva dvandvam tachet paricharitum aradarabilase swarupam shrirupam saganam ihatasya grajamapi Sputam premna nityam smaranamatada tvam srinumanaha. Listen, O mind, if you desire in every birth to reside in the land of Raja with loving attachment and to serve the youthful couple Sri Sri Radha Krishna in close proximity, then clearly remember and offer obeisances to Sri Swarupa, to Sri Rupa and his associates in Vrindavan, and to Sri Rupa's elder brother, Sri Sanatana. Okay, so we're going to look here first at Pratijanur, then we're going to look at Swarup Sri Rupam Saganam, and then we're going to look at, where are we? Now, why can't I find it? Krishna, 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 Krishna. No, somehow it's not showing up. Here we go, sorry. At Sa Ragam, so it'll be the third thing we'll look at. So we're going to look at Pratijanur, then we're going to look at Swarup Sri Rupam Saganam, and then we're going to look at Sa Ragam. So looking at Pratijanur. Pratijanur means life determination as exhibited by Rukmini Devi is the only price for purchasing Krishna's favor. So to be willing to do austerities life after life. This concept reminds us of Mukunda Mahaprabhu. What about Mukunda? And Lord Chaitanya said, I don't want to see that Mukunda. Says on Mondays he's with the devotees, on Tuesdays he's with the impersonalists, I don't know who he is. So they told Mukunda this, and Mukunda sent a message and he said, please ask the Lord when I will be able to see him. And Lord Chaitanya sent back the message. What did he say? 10 million. 10 million, not 9,000 even. Maybe you could bear 9,000, I don't know. He said 10 million. He said, I will see him after 10 million births. So imagine if we preach like this. Chant Hare Krishna, follow the four regulated principles, offer your food to Krishna, and after 10 million births, you'll become perfect. I wouldn't have come. I would have said, oh, find another society. Right? Go out on book distribution. Here, take this book. You'll attain enlightenment in 10 million births. So what did Mukunda do? He wasn't discouraged. What did he do? He started dancing. He was jumping and dancing, and he sang, I will see him after 10 million births. And they told Mahaprabhu, oh, he's dancing. And he said, okay, bring him in now. So why is this mentality of patience a further giving up of pride? Remember we talked about that pride means thinking I deserve? Yes? This thinking I deserve. I've earned my way to Krishna Prema, to enlightenment. I've chanted so many rounds. I've waved so many sticks of incense. I've donated so much money. I've made so many garlands, whatever it is. I've distributed so many books. I've put it with so many difficult devotees. Whatever it is, the austerity that we've done. And we think certainly for all this austerity, I've earned my way back to God. It doesn't work like that. So I assume all of us in this room have been offended by somebody, yes? Somebody in our life has offended us, cheated us, insulted us, disturbed us, yes? Everybody? Okay. And maybe even somebody that we care about. Maybe even somebody that we would like to have a relationship with. We'd like to have a relationship with us, with that person, but they've really messed up. So who gets to decide when the relationship is restored? The offender or the offended? Who decides when the relationship gets restored? The offended, yes? It's always like that. Imagine if some man, cheated on his wife with 50 women. Actually, after one class where I said that, some woman came up to me afterwards and said, well, it was only 17. But imagine, some guy had affairs with 50 women, and then he comes back and he says, I'm here. So, okay, she might be happy that he's there, that he's come back, but is she going to immediately let him back in? Probably not. Right? She's going to first see, well, are you really serious, or are you just going to do this again? Am I correct? Yes? And if he tried to buy his way back, if he said, okay, here's a diamond bracelet, here's a dozen roses, let me in. Would that make her more or less inclined? Less. My dear friends, with Krishna we are the offenders. And we don't really believe this, most of us. Just a few days ago I got an email from one gentleman complaining about all the problems in his life and saying, I really don't think I deserve all these problems. And this is our basic mentality. I'm a good person, I'm sincere, I work hard, and I should be attaining Krishna Prema in something like 5 minutes. If I have to wait a month or two, all right. But to have to wait year or lifetimes, then there's something wrong with God. That's basically our mentality. There's something wrong with God. Now this means that I don't understand that I'm the offender. I've had people who cheated me or offended me, and they would make a perfunctory apology. I'm sorry if I offended you. Or a really good one is, I'm sorry if you felt bad by what I did. That's basically saying that I was too sensitive, yes? Was something wrong with me, that I overreacted to their behavior instead of it was something wrong with them. If you study things about apology, which I have, so you'll see that a really good apology says, I understand that I hurt you in this and this and this ways, and I am willing to do whatever is necessary to make up for what I've done, and acknowledges that it's the offended's right to decide when to restore the relationship. The offender doesn't make any demands. If we actually understand that we've offended someone, we never demand the restoration of the relationship. We simply present our apology and we present any kind of restitution that may be appropriate, and we leave it in the hand of the offended. So this is the view of the devotee. And therefore it said, Tatenu kampam sukshamikshamano, that the way the devotee inherits the kingdom of God is to say, I will go on suffering for as long as you want me to suffer. But I will continue to offer obeisances to you, dear Lord, and I will continue to worship you. I will wait as long as necessary until you are ready to have me back. There's a very interesting story that I read about a monastery, a Catholic monastery in medieval Europe. And the monks there, the brothers, they would take 2 levels of vows. So they'd take a beginning level of vow that they would be a monk, and then after some time, they would take a lifetime vow. So one of the brothers who'd only taken a beginning vow, he became a little distracted. In those days, there were no hotels and restaurants. When you traveled, you would stay at a monastery. They would provide you with a room, and they would provide you with food. Srila Prabhupada talks about that the temples in India used to also have this kind of a role. And this way that people would give a donation, it provided some income for the temples, and as well as provided some spiritual place for travelers to rest on their journey. So one family with a teenage girl, probably like 18, 19-year-old girl, stayed in this monastery, and this young brother became attracted to the girl, and when the family left, he left with the family. So after 2 or 3 months, he came back to the monastery. He went to the abbot in charge of the monastery, and he said, I'm really sorry that I left. I want to come back. And the abbot said to him, did you actually have a fall down with this girl? He said, no, I was just thinking of marrying her, and I was getting involved with the family and working on career. And, then I realized I'd already taken my first level vows, and I really should come back to the monastery. So the abbot said, all right, well, I'm happy to take you back, but it's also up to the other brothers. So he went to the meeting, and he presented this one brother, I think his name was Brother Tim, and he asked everybody, are you willing to have him back? And he could see that not everybody was really on board with this. So he said to Tim, I'm sorry, but you need to wait until everybody's ready. He said, you can wait outside the monastery. So this was the winter in Europe. There was snow on the ground, and the abbot said, you can take my wool cloak and wait outside. So one of the brothers who was a cook would bring hot soup and bread out to Brother Tim, and then every few hours, Brother Tim would knock on the door. Can I come in yet? But he waited there, all day and all night in the freezing cold. Eventually he got a fever. And at the 3rd day, the brothers came to the abbot and they said, okay, you can let him in. So this should be the mood of the devotee. It is actually this mood that I am willing to wait life after life. I'm willing to wait until you let me in. I will never make any claims. And this, by the way, is a very difficult mood. It's not at all easy. So you can see that this is a much deeper level of humility because, all right, I have this attachment to Guru, the holy name, the holy places in the first verse. Then the second verse, I give up this dharma or adharmic identity. I'm identifying as Krishna's secret agent. That's further giving up pride. But you could see I could identify as Krishna's secret agent and not be willing to wait life after life. I could say, hey, I'm Krishna's secret agent. I should be able to be let in right now. Right? So this is even deeper. And as I said, it's quite difficult. We may chant 1 or 2 rounds with concentration and Krishna doesn't appear before us and start dancing. We say, oh, forget it. Space out for the rest of my rounds. So this kind of mood you can see is the antithesis to what's necessary for establishing a relationship with Krishna. This kind of impatience. And this impatience is definitely born of pride. So to have pratijanur, this patience, life after life. Then the next point we're going to go on to in this verse is we should follow Swarup Damodar, Rupa, and Sanatan. There's 3 places in Manah Siksa where Raghunath Das Goswami tells us we should follow Rupa. Now you might say, well, in verse 1, Raghunath Das Goswami talked about having attachment to serious practitioners of all faiths. So why here is he saying Swarup, Rupa, and Sanatan? Because if one wants to attain to Vraja, that will be most expeditiously done if we learn from those who are teaching about Vraja. Can you attain to Vraj Bhakti in other traditions? Is it possible? The answer is yes, it is possible. But it will be very unusual. Just like if you read from the Catholic saint Teresa of Avila, who lived in Spain about the same time as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, she and Saint John of the Cross write about Madhurya Bhav. So somehow or other they were attaining to this high level of Madhurya Bhav. Madhurya Bhav means it must be at least Dwarka Krishna. There's no other incarnation with whom they could have such a relationship. But it was not exactly easy for them. Both St. John of the Cross and Teresa of Avila were persecuted by the church, by their own church. And they were marginalized and they were called heretics. It was quite some time before the church was able to accept their teaching. So they were able to attain to this level, but through great difficulty. Right? If you're part of a tradition that doesn't teach these things, attaining them is possible by mercy, but it's not to be expected. So if we already know we want to attain love for the Prince of Vraja, then we do best to hear from those who are going to teach us how to attain it. So in this drawing, we show Swarup Damodar, Rupa, and Sanatan, and we've added Raghunath Das Goswami, that their books are full of these jewels of Vraj Bhakti. One of my grandchildren seeing this picture said to me, "Grandma, aren't those jewels going to hurt your head when they fall on you?" So Swarup Damodar particularly is being mentioned here by Raghunath Das Goswami. We know that Raghunath Das Goswami was interacting with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exclusively through Swarup Damodar. Krishnadas Kaviraj says that Raghunath Das Goswami did not speak to Mahaprabhu directly. He was known as the Raghunath of Swarup Damodar. He always went through Swarup Damodar. But there's an additional reason why Raghunath Das Goswami is mentioning Swarup Damodar, and that is explained very nicely by Bhakti Vinod in his book Jaiva Dharma, where he says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu specifically entrusted Swarup Damodar with teaching how to attain Vraj Bhakti. So Vraj Bhakti means spontaneous bhakti. There are certainly spontaneous devotees in Mathura and Dwarka. There are both spontaneous and regulated devotees, but in Vrindavan there's only spontaneous devotees. So it's Swarup Damodar who particularly taught this path of spontaneous devotion, which is necessary to attain Vraj. So what do we mean by spontaneous devotion? Well, both regulated and spontaneous bhakti are in the realm of practice. They are both sadhana. There's Vaidhi sadhana and Rag sadhana. They're both practice. They're both before the state of perfection. But what is the difference? So in regulative devotion, the motivation for one to do one's practice is primarily fear. Fear if I don't do sadhana, then I may have to take another birth. Or faith in the Shastra says this, my guru says that, and therefore I'm going to do it. One is still basically like asleep. One doesn't really have an idea of one's spiritual identity just in a general way. I'm a soul, I'm a servant of Krishna. And that's what's motivating them, is fear and logical, intellectual conviction. In spontaneous practice, the motivation is different. One starts to wake up. You can see he's just started to wake up. He's not out of bed yet. Yes, but he started to wake up. And here one's motivation is one attraction to Krishna. So with some material analogy, you can understand, I was visiting South India, and I met one family. Their son was like 28 years old. He still wasn't married. And I said to the young man, I said, "Why is it you're still not married?" He said, "Well, I just couldn't find anybody. They all spoke Tamil." So I came back a year later, he'd married a Bengali girl. I said, "What is that?" He said, "Oh, but I love her." So it's like that. In regulated practice, one is saying, okay, I'm doing this, following this rule, and this rule, and this rule. In spontaneous practice, I just love Krishna. I don't care. Doesn't matter. If someone says, well, in this Purana it says Shiva is God. I don't care. Aspects of the Sri Manah Siksa is that it establishes that our Srila Prabhupada and also his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, were teaching a bona fide path of spontaneous devotion. You remember I mentioned that? Anybody remember that I mentioned that? that there's criticism of Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta on this point, and there continues to be criticism on this point. And we periodically hear of somebody, oh, I have to go to another group because they're going to teach me. If you find that this is too technical, just chant Hare Krishna in your mind and ignore me. And it's not really that important for understanding Manah Siksha, but I'm hoping that at least some of you will find this interesting. It is a little technical, and I'm really just talking about it briefly. Okay? So if you're not at all interested, forget about it. If you're interested and I haven't answered all your questions about it, please read the chapter in the book. So I'm just touching it. Okay, so if you're not satisfied, I don't expect you to be satisfied. I'm just like a little introduction. All right? Is that okay? All right. So, Swarup Damodar taught the path of spontaneous practice in two different ways. He taught it in what's called an external form to Vikeshwar Pandit and an internal form to Raghunath Das Goswami. The Gopal Guru Goswami. Gopal Guru Goswami did write down the instructions for the external path in a padati. Just like, remember we mentioned in the beginning that this is a padati, it's a step-by-step guide. So Gopal Guru Goswami wrote a step-by-step guide to the external path. As far as I've been able to trace, that padati is lost. I think it may exist in a disciple, Dhanachandra Goswami. Dhanachandra Goswami compiled a padati which took his guru's padati and expanded it. And it's called the Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Padati. Now, I'm going to give you just an overview of the difference and similarities between these two paths. So we have the external path and the internal path. The internal path is the Manah Siksha that we're studying. The external path is this Gaur Govinda Archana Smarana Padati that's compiled by Dhanachandra Goswami. Both of these paths are bona fide. They were both taught by Swarup Damodar. As I said, they were taught to Rakeshwar Pandit, Raghunath Das Goswami, under the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The padati for the external path is large and complicated. Now you might say, well, Manah Siksha looks pretty big, but it's only 12 verses in its original form, on one page. So in the Gaur Govinda worship, in fact, be patient life after life. See Lord Chaitanya as the same as Krishna, see the Guru as the friend of Krishna. These first three verses we're doing in Manah Siksha are about, even though they're progressive steps, and even though verse 2 is more than 1, and 3 is more giving up pride than 2, these first three verses are mostly about qualification. Okay. Here there's nothing on changing consciousness. There are about the change or progression in consciousness. Now, it's not easy to imitate it, but it can be imitated. You can sit there for 3-5 hours a day and chant all the verses and pretend you're doing all the meditation. You'll meet people today who do imitate this process, by the way. This one can't be imitated. I mean, you could lie. You could say, yes, I am patient life after life. But you can't imitate that. That's not something you understand? It's not an imitatable behavior. It's something that's going on internally. Now, the things that are the same is there's an emphasis on Guru, on Lord Chaitanya, on Radha Krishna. That is certainly the same. All right. Well, again, both of these paths are bona fide. They were both taught by Swarup Damodar under the guidance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we find Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we find that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his books, he writes about both of them, both of these internal and external paths. However, by the time that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati was preaching, there had become many imitators of the external path. Not only that, there had become many people who had perverted or misrepresented the external path, particularly if you're familiar that they started giving improper siddha pranali, which I'm not going to get into, but if you understand that. And again, the internal path, you just can't imitate it. You can't pervert it. It's not possible. So Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati preferred to teach the internal path. The internal path is also much more in harmony with spreading a worldwide movement and preaching. Srila Prabhupada put the Gaudiya Math logo on the gates of our ISKCON property in Mayapur. We redrew the logo because we couldn't find any copy that was sharp enough to put in a book. We redrew the logo. We changed the Bangala text to Roman for Sanskrit. And we also updated the picture of the printing press. We felt we could do that because there had been 2 iterations of the logo that Bhaktisiddhanta had designed, and in the second one, he himself had updated the logo of the printing press over the first one. So we thought he wouldn't mind if we updated it further. So here you'll see that in the center is the holy name, surrounded by the 6 opulences, and on this side of the logo is regulative practice, and on this side of the logo is spontaneous practice. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati showed in this logo that he was giving equal stress to Please don't tell the children not to be children. They can move to the other side? Oh, okay. But just don't tell them not to laugh or something. Stop laughing. Please don't do that. So here we see that Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati was giving equal stress to regulative and spontaneous practice. And we demonstrate in that chapter in the book how the way that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati was doing this is completely in accord with the inner path of Manah Siksa. Now, if one thinks that spontaneous practice has to look like the external path, then it's true that they will look at Bhaktisiddhanta's movement and at ISKCON and say, it's not there. Do you understand? If you're looking for the external path, if you're looking for people sitting and doing bhajan 5 hours a day, doing all these meditations and mantras, I mean, there are some devotees who do in ISKCON who do that to some extent. But you're not going to see that as a general practice being taught in ISKCON. And so people, if they think that that's the only path, they look and they see it's not there. Oh, I guess I have to go to a Radhakund Babaji to find it. But one of the reasons as I said, we were very happy to publish this Manah Siksa. We were able to publish it in ISKCON's 50th anniversary year. Was we felt this way. We were really establishing that Srila Prabhupada and his Guru Bhaktisiddhanta were indeed teaching and are indeed teaching the bona fide path given by Swarup Damodar. On this inner path of spontaneous devotion, externally a person is still doing all of the angas of bhakti just like someone in regulative devotion. So externally, you don't see a difference. Where internally, their relationship with Krishna is developing like a bud turning into a flower. So what do we mean by their internal consciousness? We mean this specifically. So someone has a feeling, I want to be Krishna's servant. So who are Krishna's chief servants in Vraja? Raktak and Patrak. Or one of Krishna's friends. So who are Krishna's chief friends? Sudana, Subal, Sridama, who else? Madhu Mangal, everybody's favorite. Ujjvala. Or I want Krishna as my child. And here we have Rohini with Balaram, Yasoda with Krishna, and Nanda with Krishna and Balaram. Or to want to have Krishna as one's beloved. So here is our painting for this verse. And here we have the chief devotees in each of the 5 rasas. Now this verse, again, Raghunath Das Goswami in this verse says saragam, with raga. And this verse is about the very beginning awakening of raga. And because it's about the beginning awakening, we see Krishna and Balaram from behind. And the cows have kicked up a lot of dust. Things are not yet clear. So this is when the devotee first has some general, I think I'd like to have Krishna as my friend. I'd like to have. Now that's not an intellectual thing. It's not like you read the scripture and say, well, I really think I'd like to have. It's not like that. It's a spontaneous awakening of emotion that happens naturally as the anartas become cleared. Srila Prabhupada talks about this happening somewhere near the end of Anarta Nivritti. So many of you may say, well, I just don't have any feeling like that for Krishna. I have not a clue if I'm a cow or I'm Krishna's parent. I just have no idea, Maybe I'm a bumblebee or something, I don't know. So can I go on in Manah Siksa if I don't have any ideas to my eternal relationship? And the answer is yes, if you would like to awaken your eternal relationship with Krishna. So how many of you would like to awaken your eternal relationship with Krishna? Okay, then you can go on in this Manah Siksa. All right. Yes? Okay. Okay. Well, we don't follow the external process, we follow the internal process. But if you're asking, how does one shift from one to the other? Is that what you're asking? What are you asking?
Example, some people,
how do they end up on the path of raga?
how do they look, what do they do in external process?
Oh, you want to know the external path? What are they doing?
Yes, what do they do?
On the external path, how would you recognize someone following the external path? So in addition to chanting 16 rounds or 64 rounds and doing worship of the deities and offering their food and reading the scripture, they would be saying mantras to each member of the Panchatattva, to each of the Goswamis, to Radha Krishna, to each of the main gopi friends of Radharani, to each of the Manjari gopis. That's assuming that they were a gopi themselves. But that's what's given by Dhanachandra Goswami. He only gives you a gopi template. So if you were a cowherd boy, you'd have to have something else. And then for each of them a meditation. And every time you say this mantra, you do a particular meditation. And a particular kind of worship. It's connected with archana. So you're doing a worship of the deities, you're saying a particular mantra, and you're having a particular meditation. And you also meditate on yourself being in your original form. So what you'd be seeing is somebody doing this. Just like I once met a lady in Radhakund, and in her room she had a whole map of the Uppercut Lila. So she had Radhakund and Shamakund, but on the map wasn't the places that you would see with your eyes. Like I could take you on a tour of Radhakund. I have another tour of Radhakund in my computer that we could take you on. But that would be the external places. We'd take you and say, well, here's where Bhaktivinod's house is, and here's where Lalita Kund is, and here's where Jiva Goswami had it, like that. But they have a map of, this is where this gopi has her kund, and this is where this cowherd boy has his place. And so they're meditating on that, and they're meditating on being in the lila. And they're doing that for several hours a day in addition to their sadhana. Is that clear? Is that what you wanted to know? Was that what you were asking me? It wasn't what you were asking me.
So I got the answer, but we don't have being here in this world. We cannot go spend apart from our sadhana meditating and all. I'm not saying.
Well, that's why Bhaktisiddhanta didn't teach us to do that. One of the reasons. That wasn't the only reason. One reason he didn't teach that process was because that isn't practical for developing a worldwide society. That's practical for a few bhajananandis. That's one reason he didn't teach it. And he wanted a preaching society that could transform the world. You're not going to transform the world with a process like that. Another reason he didn't teach it was that at the time that Bhaktisiddhanta was teaching, that process had become perverted. Unqualified gurus were teaching this process to unqualified disciples. And they were just telling everybody, okay, you're a Manjari Gopi, you're a Manjari Gopi, you're a Manjari Gopi, you're a Manjari Gopi. You're all 12, they're telling them, you're 12 years old and you wear blue clothes, and you're 12 years old and you wear blue. And they were doing something that wasn't based on realization and wasn't based on maturity. It wasn't based on qualification. And they made it very cheap. And sometimes when something is being made very cheap and imitated, you may want to do something else altogether. Sometimes it's hard to restore the genuine thing when it's been perverted and imitated. So that was another reason. So first of all, it wasn't compatible with a preaching society, with a worldwide society, and second of all, it had become so perverted and so imitated by so many people. I'm not saying everybody. I will provisionally say that there may be people practicing a bona fide external path at this point on the planet. I'm not saying that there can't be. But it became so imitated and so perverted, he preferred to go with the inner path. And the inner path is much safer, frankly. I mean, another thing I didn't write down there, but to do the external path, you'd really have to have a lot of God.
And after qualification, what is the one that you put in the
well, there's no, because it would be totally up to the guru. So the external path is highly dependent on having a very qualified and very honest guru who's working with you one-on-one. So it's a manual given for people in that situation, and it's dependent on having a very, very qualified guru and very honest guru who can say, okay, you're ready for this.
Okay.
But it became perverted. The people just started doing it on their own. People just to say, oh, I think I'm just going to do this. Or unqualified gurus saying, okay, everybody can do it. Does that make sense? Because it's not external behaviors, it's a change in consciousness. So you're changing your consciousness, you're developing your attachment. You're working on your identity, and you're working on your patience. And this raga that often will appear here in verse 3 at this stage occurs spontaneously. It occurs of its own accord as one's going through that process. So it's requiring something a little different. I'll give you a simple example. So an analogy. I was asked years ago by people working with the GBC to put together a particular course on a particular aspect of strategic planning for leadership. So I put together this course, and then they were going to have other people teach it. So I put in the course a list of qualifications for who could teach it. I didn't put a course like we did our Learn to Read to teach children how to read. And we designed that course so that a parent could teach it at home. It didn't require you to have teacher certification. You didn't need to go through, a bachelor's degree as a teacher to be able to teach that class. But you can also buy literacy programs that if you weren't qualified as a teacher, you would just make a mess out of it. I mean, as a simple example, so if you're going to teach something called synthetic phonics, synthetic phonics means that you're blending letter sounds to make words. If you're going to have the word B-A-T, you're blending the sounds. So if you're not trained as a teacher, you might think the sound of it never becomes bat. So if you give untrained people a synthetic phonic program and say blend the sounds, they'll never teach reading. They'll just mess the poor kids up and frustrate them. You follow? So that kind of a program requires a qualified teacher to be able to teach it. But if you use what we call analytic whole word phonics, you don't have to do that. You just say AT says at, BAT says bat, and you never work with the particular sounds. And then a 10-year-old can teach a 5-year-old how to read. You might say, well, why doesn't everybody use the program that doesn't require qualifications? Well, there's some benefit. People are different. They like different things. So the external path is only suitable if you have right at your elbow a very highly qualified teacher. And if you have a very highly qualified teacher at your elbow, student. Is that okay? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, you mentioned these. I'm just trying to clarify my understanding. The paths that you mentioned, external and internal, are part of the spontaneous devotional.
They're divisions of spontaneous. This is sadhana. Spontaneous practice is sadhana. Nectar Devotion, chapter 2.
Okay.
So there's two divisions of sadhana. One is regulative sadhana, one is spontaneous sadhana. It's still a sadhana. Thank you, very good question. Many people think that spontaneous practice is sadhya. It's not, it's a sadhana. It's also a practice. It's a different kind of practice. What's the main difference between regulated practice and spontaneous practice is your motivation, your reason for doing it. That's the primary difference, is your reason. What's driving you? Is what's driving you fear and intellectual conviction, or is what's driving you a specific attachment to Krishna? Now, if the drivers are different, the practice will also be at least somewhat. In regulated practice, you're meditating on all the devotees. Now, you're also doing that in spontaneous, but you're particularly meditating on those devotees who have a similar mood to yours.
I have a second question. Can I ask, Mataji?
Yes, except I did tell you that I wasn't going to be able to explain this particular point in depth. So if you're looking for me to be able to explain it in depth, we're not actually going to be able to do it. But okay, just if you keep that in mind. So if you don't, I didn't expect you all to feel satisfied with this point. I warned you that in the beginning, yes? Yes. So if you're saying, but you haven't fully satisfied me on this point, but I told you I wouldn't be able to fully satisfy you on this point. I did not overpromise. So if you really want to explore the differences between the internal and external path, we have a chapter in the book on this topic. And I really would suggest you go there. Also, in the commentaries on these verses, especially the commentary on verse 3, you will find more of an explanation on these points. So we do have, that's why we have a book. So we do have further comments, and I think that if you read those, if you are interested in this topic and you read those, you will be able to get more explanation. So, because I'd like to go on to verse 4, but if it's quick, we'll take one more.
Yesterday, one of the points you mentioned was to be attached to holy places, Mataji.
Yes.
And you mentioned that all of the temples, not only Vrindavan, but anything like
Yes,
Nepal,
like here.
Yes, is also a holy. And today, when out of all the verses that we discussed, one of the common themes seem to be that Vraja, or the land of Vrindavan.
Yes.
So I was just thinking, like, how does it relate to the yesterday's point of?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question. So wherever there is Vraj Krishna, there must be Vrajadham. Krishna does not ever appear, he never leaves Vrindavan. Do you have Vraj Krishna here on the altar? I thought I saw him when we had the curtains open. Is he here? Is he here or no? Well, this must be Vrajadham. What do you think? You think he's staying in someplace else?
I wasn't quite sure. But
Oh, now you're sure. Of course, Prabhupada, he called like Radha Paris Ishwara and London Ishwara. But even that place becomes Vrindavan. So just like at our new Vrindavan, and Prabhupada wanted 7 temples established, or if you go to New Vraj Dham in Hungary, what Shiva Ramar has done is he's established all the holy places of Vrindavan around the property. So there's a little stream, that's the Yamuna. There's a tiny little hill, that's Govardhan. And each of the buildings on the property, one is designated as Rupa Goswami Samadhi. At our Innisrath in Ireland also it's like that. Even as you walk through the woods, you will see Denakasura dead up in the tree. So this is something, it's one of the 7 purposes of ISKCON, is to establish a holy place, at least one. But really, each of our temples can be established like that. And I hope I'm not going to get in trouble with the management, but you can do this on this property. I don't know if I'll ever be invited back. They're kind of like, don't we already have enough work to do? What is she saying? It doesn't have to be done by the management. It could be done by the devotees in general. But you could establish, here's Govardhan. I don't know if I should say this or not. There's, talking about how to enter into spontaneous devotion. I know one devotee who on one ISKCON property decided that he was going to build a replica of Govardhan Hill. So he's building a little replica of Govardhan Hill, and by doing that one thing, his eternal relationship and Swarup with Krishna awakened. And he told me, he said, I was just always meditating on Govardhan and Krishna's pastimes at Govardhan. He said, all the time, he said, I'm chanting japa, I'm chanting my Gayatri, I'm doing my service. All I'm ever thinking about is Krishna's pastimes at Govardhan. And then he understood eventually who he was. So that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to actually establish in each of our centers. The one time that I was very blessed to be in Manipur, I visited a very old temple. You know, the Manipuris became Gaudiya Vaishnavas by the preaching of Narottama Das Thakur. And there was a temple that was owned by a former king. It was part of his own personal home. And he established there a replica of Radhakund, Shamakund, Govardhan Hill, and so forth. So there's a tradition of doing that, of establishing the various holy places wherever we also have the deity. And you can also think like that in your own home. You know, if you establish an altar in your home and you have the deity in your home, and you can think, well, if the deity's here, then Vrindavan is here. If you have Gaurnitai, Navadvip Vrindavan, same. What Bhakti Vinod said, right? Sudha Bhakata Charnarain, you know that song? He said, I take the Charnamrita, I see my whole home transformed into Goloka Vrindavan. You want to know something even more wonderful? So who's in our heart? Who's in our heart? The Paramatma. All right, but if you're a devotee of Raj Kishore Krishna, then you're not going to just see Paramatma, you're going to see Krishna in your heart. Well, guess what? If Krishna's in your heart, guess what else is in your heart? Rindavan. Isn't that nice?
Thank you, Mataji.
You are very welcome. All right. So should we go on? Do one more verse? Okay, this is the heavy part. This is the heart surgery part. So if you don't want any heart surgery, just, it's too late, your kids have to go to bed, you just leave her. You know. Pretend you got an important phone call from the Queen of England. We won't judge you. It is heart surgery, it is deep, it is intense, but the end result is very sweet. I want us to keep in mind, as we go through these next verses, this is a padati. It's going step by step. Raghunath Das Goswami is writing these forthcoming verses for people who've already finished the first 3 verses. So he's not writing this for materialistic people. He's writing this for devotees, and not only devotees, but serious devotees who already have attachment for Guru, holy name, the mantra, holy place, the devotees, process of surrender, who are also making an effort, who are giving up pride, who are free from thinking, I'm a very good person or I'm a bad person, who see Lord Chaitanya as Krishna, who see the Guru as Krishna's friend, who are patient life after life, following Swarup Damodar, Rupa, and Sanatan, who may have already awakened the beginning of their relationship with Krishna, or at least desire to do so. These are the people he's talking about in these next verses. So he says, this is very nice. It's wonderful. You have attachment for Guru, for the holy name, for the mantra, for the holy place, for the process of surrender, for the devotees. You're making an effort, giving up pride, being Krishna's secret agent, not thinking I'm a good or a bad person. The right relationship with Lord Chaitanya. The right relationship. What are you talking about? Okay? Asadvarta Veshya Visrijamati Sarvasvaharini Katamukti Vyagrana Shrinu Kila Sarvatma Gilani Api Twaktva Lakshmi Patirati Mito Vyomanayani Vraje Radha Krishna Swarati Mani Dao Tvam Bhajamanaha. O mind, abandon the prostitute of mundane talks who plunders all intelligence. Do not listen at all to the stories of the tigress named Mukti, liberation, who devours all souls. Moreover, also give up attachment to the husband of Lakshmi, Sri Narayana, who only leads one to Vaikuntha. Instead, here in Vraja, serve Sri Sri Radha Krishna, who give one the jewel of their own love. So what are we talking about? Prabhupada said, a well-dressed fool is only recognized when he opens his mouth, which we see in some of our modern politicians. What are we talking about? You know, we come to a meeting like this and we talk about Krishna, and then as soon as we go out, what are we talking about? I see devotees on social media, you'd never know they were a devotee. They only post about, politics or the economy or something. What are we talking about? What we talk about reveals our real character. So this is, of the 4 obstacles we're going to go through, this is the most gross form of pride because it's very obvious to others. Soon after I started teaching Manah Siksa, one very senior devotee called me about some service, talked to me for about 2 hours, and about half the time he was just glorifying himself and criticizing others. And when I got off the phone, I thought, I wonder if this devotee has any idea that this is what he's doing. And I started really listening to myself. How often do we talk about useless things or direct or indirect self-glorification? Most of the time we criticize others. It's indirect self-glorification. You know that, right? Right? You all know that? It's one of the main reasons we criticize others. I'm not like that. What are we talking about? That shows who we really are. And not only does it show who we really are, it creates who we are. Yam yam vapi sram bhavam, whatever we think about, we become. And that's mostly through sound. Yes, you know, the whole world is created by sound. What was that sound? So the sound Om created everything. And everything is still vibrating with sound. You know, the scientists say this table is not really solid matter, it's mostly air. You know that, right? And the electrons are moving and they're vibrating and they're making a sound. This particular body and life that we have was a result of the sounds we have vibrated in this life and in previous life. What we talk about, what we listen to, what we read, what we write, is creating our future. It's revealing our character and creating our future. And Raghunath Das Goswami has a very heavy metaphor here. He said these mundane sounds are like a prostitute. So a prostitute may look attractive and promise love and pleasure, but what does she really want? What does she want? Money. Here she's stealing his jewel of wealth right out of the heart. So if one thinks to find love with a prostitute, they may wake up in the morning and have no money, have no health. Maybe their families left them. Maybe they've lost their reputation. Maybe they've lost their job. And probably the prostitute has also left. So if we talk about mundane things, we wake up and the jewel of bhakti in our heart is gone. This is particularly true if we criticize others. So if our mundane talk is critical of others, then one day we have no taste for bhakti. All these other things, all of our attachment and our identity that we've been working on, if we engaged in mundane talk, our taste will be lost. And then he says, okay, so you're not talking about mundane things. But if you talk about liberation, liberation is like a tigress. Tigress is more fierce than the tiger usually. That will eat your very self. And what do we mean by talks about liberation? So obviously this means talking about merging in the Brahman. But anytime when we're focused on our own freedom. Oh, Kali Yuga is so bad. Oh man, I can't wait to get out of here. I'm suffering so much. When am I going to go back to Godhead? Come on, let's hurry up, get out of here. I mean, that's talks of our own liberation. And it's incompatible with our self. Our self is in love with Krishna. You know, when you love somebody, what do? Just like in the marriage ceremony, what do? We take off that says, okay, you're free to go. Hopefully, you won't be happy. You know? I mean, when Krishna said that to Rukmini, she wasn't happy. He said, okay, you're free to go. Now, of course, you can't love without freedom. If you're being forced to love, it's not love. But if your concentration is on your own freedom, that's not love. Does this make sense to everybody? So I can't really love Krishna unless I'm liberated from false identities. But if I'm focusing on my own liberation, there can't be love. Therefore, talking about liberation is like a tigress that eats my very self. But a tigress may appear very beautiful and attractive. It may look like it's very spiritual. Talks about liberation may seem very, very spiritual. Just like some people keep tigers as pets, yes? You've heard about that? Some people keep tigers as pets, so especially some of these Arabian sheiks, you know. Nice tiger, beautiful tiger, yes. And then one day the guy doesn't show up at work, you know. So it's like that. If we're harboring this beautiful tigress of talks of liberation, our self may be eaten. Bhaktivinoda in his commentary said this is like a prisoner who thinks he's going to become free by committing suicide. And he compares these talks of mundane things and liberation to being haunted by two witches. Okay. So I'd like us to do an individual exercise. You will have to have something to write on and something to write with. You could use your phone, I suppose, if you don't have paper and pencil. I assume you all have phones. So I'd like us to do a little unusual exercise. This is done individually. So I'd like you to think 6:30, 6:30 to 6, 6 to 5:30, 5:30 to 5, going backwards in half-an-hour increments. What were you listening to or speaking about or reading or writing? What were the sounds? What was the topic of the sounds? Just maybe like one word or 2 or 3 words for each half an hour back to the time you woke up. Starting at 7 o'clock, going backwards in half-an-hour increments. So if you could start that now. Okay, even if you didn't get all the way back to when you woke up, I hope you found that helpful. And I would suggest another home fun assignment if you'd like to do it. We talked about writing down what you feel you're entitled to. Another thing you can do is pick a day every once in a while and actually note down what are the sounds that I'm making and surrounding myself with. Like make a note every half an hour. What am I talking about? What am I reading? What am I writing? What am I listening to? Now, Raghunath Das Goswami takes this even a step further. And not only is he saying we shouldn't talk about ordinary mundane things or liberation in general, but he's even talking about to become involved in the sounds of attraction to the husband of the goddess of fortune, Sri Narayana. And I find it particularly interesting. Have some attachment to enjoying the opulences of Narayana. So just like I have a friend who said to me, Urmila, I like to have really rich friends. And I said, well, isn't that a little inconvenient? You know, you can't quite keep up with them, and you and your wife may become envious. And he said, no, it's not like that. He said, when my friends go on their yacht, I get to go too. You know, when they have a party for their children with bouncy castles and clowns and magicians, my children get a nice party. So the mood of the residents of Rindaman, of Vaikuntha, the mood of the residents of Vaikuntha is they love Narayana. It's not that they don't love Narayana, but they also really enjoy the opulences of Narayana. Whereas those in Vrindavan don't have that mood. Therefore, when Krishna appears with 4 arms in front of the gopis as Narayana, what do they say to him? Where's Krishna? The residents of Vrindavan, they're not there for the kalpavriksha trees and the chintamani dust. They're there because they love Krishna. So we don't even want, this verse 4 is about sound. We don't want to even be making the sounds that are going to increase our attachment to Narayana. So how do we become free from these sounds of the prostitute, the tigress, and even Narayana? So Raghunath Das Goswami says we need a jewel. Now I'm sure many of you know that jewels can be very powerful. They can change our consciousness, they can affect our health. So what is this jewel that we need to have? Raghunath Das Goswami says, this is our painting for this verse, Raghunath Das Goswami says we need the jewel of the loving service attitude of Vrindavan. So we know Krishna Das Kaviraj and Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that when Radharani serves Krishna, that's her happiness, and when Krishna serves Radha, that's his happiness. The mood is to become happy by serving the other. Prabhupada says we should become happy through Krishna. You know, we all have a little bit of an idea of that in this world, right? If your spouse gets something wonderful, you feel your happiness through them. Your child does something wonderful, you feel your happiness through them. Your friend does something wonderful, you feel your happiness through them. That you're happy at their happiness. So that is the serving mood of Vrindavan. That I am happy at Krishna's happiness. And when one has this jewel, one's life becomes filled with transcendental sound. The prostitute, the tigress, and even attachment to Lakshmipati is very easily vanquished. So we'll be going on tomorrow morning. We are meeting at 11 o'clock, is that correct? Yes? So we're meeting 11 o'clock, and we'll be doing probably just 2 verses in the morning, verse 5 and 6, on 2 more of the obstacles and how to overcome them. So we have 5 minutes if anyone has any further questions or comments, objections, chastisements, additions, subtractions. Yes. Well, it's not that you have to wait for many, many lifetimes. One has to have that mood. Don't worry, you won't be many lifetimes. Did I scare you all? It won't be. Prabhupada says this life, but we should have that mood.
So, how do we help people who are victimized by? So
How do we help people who are victimized by pride?
not pride, but if they are in the victimized situation, how to help those people? How to
That's better.
help people who are in the victimized situation
Victimized
by other people?
by everybody?
Not everybody. In that situation, if they are in the victimized, so it's
How do
their-
we help people who are victimized?
victimized situation.
I'm not exactly clear.
So, for example, battered women, right? How do
We
so
help people who are
telling them
who are,
to stay humble or like so? I'm, you know,
Oh, okay. I'm glad I worked at this till I understood what you said. So, how does humility relate to letting people be cruel to you? Is that your question? So, if you're really humble, does it mean that you let people kick you and punch you and insult you? People often think that that's what humility means. Now, it might mean that sometimes, if you don't have any option, just like Prahlad Maharaj, his father was trying to kill him. Yes? His father was a Maha child abuser. He was the Adi child abuser in the universe. So he was trying to kill his child in so many ways. Now, was there anything Prahlad could do about that externally? Could he go to the Child Protection Office and complain? What about the police force? Could he go to the police? His father was in charge of the police force. Where was he going to, what could he do? He couldn't do anything. So in that situation where he really genuinely had no recourse, he couldn't do anything. He just remembered Krishna, and Krishna saved him. A similar situation was there with Haridas Thakur. When Haridas Thakur was being beaten by the government men, where was he going to go? It was the government that was beating him. He didn't have anywhere to go. However, if you have somewhere to go, your body is also Krishna's what? Property. Your body, your mind is Krishna's property. If somebody was, banging Krishna's car with a sledgehammer, you would do something about it. And if somebody's banging your body with a sledgehammer, you should do something about it also. That's your duty, that's your service. So it's your duty and your service to call the police. It's not that humility means that, I'm an idiot. And I let people, smash my body and smash my mind. I mean, sometimes there may actually be no choice. If you were imprisoned by the KGB in the former Soviet Union, you really didn't have much of a choice. But if you have an option to get protection, then you should get protection. In general, please. It's nothing to do with pride. There's no relationship between that and pride. In fact, many times people don't do something in that situation because they are proud. And they don't want someone else to know that there's a problem because they want to have a veneer to the public that everything's good. So it's many times people don't say anything because of an attachment to a dharmic identity, by the way. So it's actually pride that causes the problem often. Or just confusion. They may just not know. They may not know what options are available. They may not know what to do and so forth. They may just be ignorant. Anything else? We have like 2 minutes to 9. Yes, this one gentleman, that will be it for tonight.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
I actually have two questions.
Uh-oh, you're going to try to get 2 in. I said one more question.
Going back to the internal and external differences, first of all, I would apologize. I was not here. Maybe a part of it was a prerequisite. Maybe I don't have that knowledge there. So I'm trying to understand, while we practice the internal aspect of it, and this is at the spontaneous level. So for me, who's still a sadhaka, who's not spontaneous.
Okay, remember that these are both, that spontaneous is sadhana.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
There's Vaidhi sadhana and Raga sadhana.
Yes.
They're both sadhanas. Okay.
So for me, it feels, the chanting that we do and everything is still external.
Okay, that's a different kind of external. It's using the same word in 2 different contexts. Taking the word external and using it, it's being used in a different way here. Completely different way.
Okay.
Okay, it's the same word, external, but the meaning here is different. Another way it could be translated would be esoteric and exoteric.
Okay. Okay, ma'am.
So it can be called the outer external or exoteric, the inner internal or esoteric. One path has to do more with behaviors, externally measurable, visible behaviors, and one has more to do with an internal change of consciousness. That has neither one is a mechanical process. These are two variations of a spontaneous practice. A spontaneous practice cannot, by definition, be mechanical, or it's not a spontaneous practice at all. Now, because the external or exoteric path has to do with measurable, visible behaviors, it is possible for someone to imitate it mechanically. But neither is meant to be mechanical at all. So if unqualified people are doing it mechanically, that was exactly the problem that Bhaktisiddhanta decided not to teach that path. He actually taught some aspects of it, but he basically didn't teach that path. But that's completely different than a person has not yet developed an attachment for Krishna, and therefore their practices of sadhana have a lot of mechanicalness to them. That's apples and oranges.
Yes, ma'am.
Does that help you?
Yes, Mataji, definitely yes. My next question is again related to verse number 4. After we did the exercise, I had to step out for a minute, and then by the time I think it came back, the discussion ended. So, at least me personally, when trying to have conversations, and most of the time our conversations are with equals.
Okay.
And the difficulty, at least, is often when I try to present my realization or whatnot, it becomes more like a philosophical conversation, which, how do I put it? It's more. Yeah.
Well, I would really suggest, first of all, philosophical conversations are fine if they're based on the Shastra, if they're just not wildly mentally speculating in the stratosphere. But I would like to suggest, and one of the reasons that I'm enthusiastic about producing and teaching Manah Siksha, is that we really start thinking about the sound vibration we have among each other. So my most wonderful service that I was ever able to do was running a nursery school where I taught little children, aged 2 to 5. We have a mood in our Hare Krishna movement that children are a disturbance to bhakti. There's a really strong mood like that. Children are a problem, they're a problem, they're a problem, they're a problem, they're a problem. Get them out, keep them quiet, I don't know, gag them or something, I don't know. So we have this kind of mentality and, have as few children as possible, hurry up, get them grown up and get them out of the way and get on with your real program. But my most nectarian experience in the Hare Krishna movement, in terms of attachment to Krishna, was with little children. Because when you're with little children, especially little children, so I had 22 years as a Gurukul teacher. But Gurukul teacher, you have to teach them things like math and science and geography and that. But when you're teaching the little children, there's no pressure like that. At least there wasn't when I was doing it. So you can just talk about Krishna's pastimes the whole time. So Krishna and Balaram blew their buffalo horns. Ooh. Come on, everybody, let's go play in the Vrindavan forest. Let's all be a cow. Okay, let's all be a cow. And then we sing all these songs, blue skies, white clouds, Krishna and Balaram are following the cows. Over on Govardhan where the cows stray, the cowherd boys all play with Krishna and Balaram all through the day. Uh-oh, there's Aghasura. His name is Aghasura. He's fat and round. His lip is in the sky. His chin is on the ground. His wide open mouth is just like a cave. Soon it will be Krishna's grave. And that's what we did all day long. We just sang songs about Krishna's pastimes, and we did puppet shows, and we did dramas, and we made garlands for Krishna, which I took apart after the kids left and we put together the next day. And we made, clay offerings and things like that. And it was all about Krishna. But somehow we seem to really have a problem with this with the adults. Prabhupada said the children should play as if Krishna was right there next to them. And so we'd go to the park, right? in Detroit, go to the park by the Detroit River. And the kids would say, okay, come on, Krishna. As if Krishna was right there. Come on, Balaram, come on, Krishna. There's a demon, let's get him. You know, if you do that with the adults, they'd be like, so I'd like to have at least a little change in the Hare Krishna movement. So after one of my Manah Siksa seminars, one devotee wrote me an email, and it said, have you heard the news? And I'm like, oh no, what now? And then I kept reading, Nanda Maharaj was swallowed by a snake, and everybody was hitting him with fire torches, you know, and they couldn't get, and then Krishna got him out. And I'm like, why don't I get more emails like that? You know, I get these emails, oh, my wife is this, my husband is that, my mind is this, my this is that. Hare Krishna. I mean, that's okay. But, you know, it'd be nice to have something about how Krishna steps on the snake and rescues Nanda Maharaj. So my suggestion to you is get at least a few friends who will agree just to talk about Nam Guna Rupa Lila. And for the past few years, I've had a little group of friends like this. That's all we talk about. We don't talk about our families, we don't talk about our bodies, we don't talk about nothing like that. Just Nam Guna Rupa Lila. That's all. I mean, sometimes a person might say, sorry, I won't be here for 2 weeks, I have to go visit my in-laws or something like that, but otherwise, nothing like that. So it's certainly not politics. And we don't even talk about our practical services. Nobody talks about, oh my God, I didn't buy the flowers on time, and nobody, we just something for that. So I'd suggest have some friends you can just talk to about Krishna who aren't going to think you're crazy. Where you can go up to them and you can say, hey, did you hear the news? Oh, what's that? Mahaprabhu's come back. He's come back to Jagannath Puri after his whole trip around South India. Everybody's going to be gathering there. Would you like to go? Have somebody you can talk to like that.
Thank you very much.
Is that all right? It's now 9:10. It's a Friday night. Thank you very much for coming on a weekday. Krishna willing, we will meet tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Raghunath Goswami ki jai, Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Books, if you would like a book, they're here on the table.